So, good day everyone. Good day, ma'am. So, today I'm going to discuss to you a other type of quantitative analysis, the discrimination index. So, before we proceed to our discussion, here's our objectives. By the end of this lesson, learners will able to identify the difference between the discrimination index and difficulty index, explain the importance of discrimination index in evaluating test items, differentiate between items with good or poor discrimination indices. So first, let's define what is discrimination index. According to James Popham, typically tells us how frequently an item is answered correctly by those who perform well on the total test. While Kubicin and Borich define the discrimination index as a measure of the instinct to which a test items discriminate or differentiate between students who do well on the overall test and those who do not do well on the overall test. So if difficulty index measure how easy or difficult a test items is for the student, discrimination index it compares the performance of high-performing student to low-performing student. Next is the importance of discrimination index. So first, it shows which question are working well, meaning if a question is mostly answered correctly by high scorer and missed by low scorer, it is a good question, means the item is measuring real understanding. So next, it helps you improve future tests. By checking the discrimination index, teacher can see which item need to be revised, removed, or keep. Items with a low or negative index may be confusing, misleading, or poorly written. Madi-discuss din natin yung negative discrimination index later on. So, next, it supports better teaching decision. So, knowing items work well can guide teacher in improving instructional method and focusing on topic where students struggle. Next, it ensures fair and reliable assessment. Using item with a good discrimination helps ensure that students are evaluated fairly, that scores reflect actual learning, not just guessing. There are three types of discrimination index: the positive, negative, and non-discriminating item. So first is positively discriminating item. Indicates an item is answered correctly more often by those who score well on the total test than by those who score poorly on the total test. If positive discriminating item is answered correctly by high-performing student than low-performing student, and the negative discriminating items, the item is answered more often correctly by low-performing student than high-performing student. This means the item may be misleading, confusing, or poorly written. So, non-discriminating item is a test question where students with high scores and students with low scores perform about the same. Either both groups get it right or both groups get it wrong. In short, the question fails to discriminate or differentiate between high and low performing students. So, here's a table. So, here's a formula for solving discrimination index. D is equal to number of correct from upper group minus number of correct from lower group over number in either group, either from upper group or in the lower group. Here's the steps for analysis of classroom assessment procedure and how to choose upper group and lower group. Number 1 is order the test paper from high to low by total score. Number 2 is divide the papers into a high group and a low group with an equal number of paper papers in each group. So to choose your upper group and lower group, you need to get the 27% of higher group and 27% of the lower group. The rest of the rest 46% will not be used in the analysis. So for example, you have a 30 total number of students, then you get the 27% of 30, which is 8. So then you have a 8 student from higher group and lower group. So you get the 27% from the top and 27% in the bottom to get the upper group and lower group. Number 3, calculate a p-value for each of the high and low groups. Number 4 is subtract p or lower group from p H or higher group to obtain each item's discrimination index. You're just going to subtract the lower group from the higher group. So higher group minus lower group for you to obtain the discrimination index of that certain item. The reason why 27% is best for selecting the upper and lower group and calculating the discrimination index is based on statistical theory, specifically from Kelly's method 1939. So Kelly's found out that using the top and bottom 27% of scores gives the maximum difference between high and low scores without reducing the reliability of the comparison. Truman L. Kelly is a psychologist and a psychometrician who introduced the Kelly's method in 1939. 30% is acceptable for selecting your upper and lower group. 30% is close enough to 27% that it usually won't significantly affect your result. 30 in selecting your upper and lower group is not recommended because the higher you go, the less contrast there is between high and low groups, making it hard to detect meaningful differences in how each group performs on an item. So, greater than 30, it reduces the contrast and reliability of the index. So, this is the guidelines for evaluating the discrimination efficiency of the item. 0.40 to 1.00 has a excellent discrimination. 0.30 to 0.39 is good discrimination. 0.20 to 0.29 is fair discrimination, but consider revising if needed. So next is 0.19 to 0.00 is poor items to be rejected or improved by revision. Negative discrimination index indicates possible flaws or revise or remove. So now let's connect discrimination index to norm and criterion reference assessment. So the acceptable range of discrimination index differs slightly depending on whether you are using a norm or criterion reference assessment. The acceptable discrimination index in norm is 0.30 to 1.00, while criterion reference assessment is 0.20 or even lower. In criterion reference assessment, a lower discrimination index doesn't mean always a bad item. It might just mean most students master the skill, which is a good thing. So here's a quantitative item analysis checklist: eliminate or revise item. Check. So A, does key discriminate positively? This means are higher performing student more likely to choose the correct answer than lower performing student? If yes, the the key is functioning well And if no, the key may be misleading or poorly worded. B. Do distractor discriminate negatively? This means are lower performing student more likely to choose the distractor than the higher performing student? If you answer yes to both A and B, no revision may be necessary. If you answer no to A or B, revision is necessary. If you answer no to A and B, eliminate the item. Let's try to answer this example. So we have a 50 total student. So 25 student answer letter A and 15 student answer letter B and 5 student answer letter C and 5 student answer letter D. To select our upper and lower group, we need to get the 27% of 50. So the 27% of 50 is 14. So we have a 14 student in upper group and 14 student in lower group. So in upper group, 10 out of 14 student got the correct answer, while the lower group, 4 out of 14 student got the correct answer. Now, let's calculate discrimination index. So here's the formula. D is equals to upper group minus lower group over N. D is equals to 10 minus 4 over 14. So 10 minus 4 is equals to 6 over 14. The result is 0.43. This means the question is excellent because high scorer got it right more often than low scorer. For your activity, write the differences and similarities of the difficulty index and discrimination index. Write your answer in one half crosswise.